This is the Denver Climate Project. If you've been on scooters, RTD, and the sidewalk around Denver, you've seen these ads. The Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency blanketed the city in these ads to make you stop and think about your personal effect on the environment. I'm Abbie Hundley with Met TV, and I have been intrigued with these ads since they came out, so I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about these. Along with the ads, we've also seen brand partnerships with Lime, Bird, Goodwill, and some local food brands on top of that. There are also some tips on how to make your daily life more sustainable on their website. This project is a $3 million partnership with Solke Advertising. They're a Denver-based organization aimed to make change through creative advertising. This project does come at a strange time for the Climate Protection Fund, though. The Climate Protection Fund is a 2020 voter-approved sales/use tax of 0.25% to fund climate action within Denver. They fund the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, and that's who launched the Denver Climate Project. According to an audit done in May 2025, the tax has brought in $189.1 million in 2021 to 2024. But only $103 million of that has been used, not to mention every year 25 to 50% of staff positions were filled. The audit also found some pretty serious issues. Timothy O'Brien said in the auditor's letter, the audit found the office to have insufficient staffing levels and formal processes to effectively monitor contract expenses and performance. Additionally, we found that the projects the office funded for other Denver agencies did not always align with the Climate Protection Fund's allowable uses, and the office's missions and goals were not always sufficiently monitored. The Denver Climate Project has some critics. The Denverite compared the project to fossil fuel industry practices with public relations and delaying climate action by blaming individuals. Some also say that advertising climate action isn't an allowable use of the fund's money, and that a $3 million ad campaign, while a majority of Denverites already agree with taking climate action, maybe isn't the best use of money. But that's an issue for our interview with Robert Preuhs, which is coming up in a couple minutes. Because the campaign has so many nuances and is aimed to create public engagement, I asked MSU Denver students around campus how they felt about the ad. None of them have ever heard of it before, but here's what a couple of them had to say.
Jose, how do you feel about using advertising to solve the climate crisis?
I think it's a good way of informing citizens about how much power that we have as an individual over climate change.
Avery, how do you feel about climate change?
If people don't take action now, I feel like we're definitely going to see the detrimental effects definitely before it's too late. It's going to be too far gone for us to have done anything. And, I think that spreading awareness is very, very important.
I also talked to Cassy, the Auraria Campus Sustainability Director, to get her 2 cents on the issue, because she has a very unique perspective as someone who makes the world a more sustainable place. I wanted you to talk a little bit about your program, because I really like what you guys do.
Absolutely. So the Auraria Sustainable Campus Program is a tri-institutionally student fee funded program. So about $10 of every student's fees from all 3 universities and colleges on campus come to us, and then we do projects and programs that make the campus more environmentally friendly, less reliant on fossil fuels. We do that through projects and programs and partnerships and events throughout the institutions.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, have you heard of the Denver Climate Project and the ads and stuff before this interview?
I've seen them around, but I haven't done any research on them prior to our introduction.
Okay, how do you feel about them?
They are capturing, I would say. Yeah, they're simple, they're blunt, they're straightforward.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about them too.
Yeah.
Do you think that this campaign promotes effective climate action?
Yes. It's really difficult coming from an environmental department lens that focuses so much on education and outreach. It's really difficult to get effective messaging across and to get people engaged. And so to communicate something so concise and so pointed, I guess, takes skill. And you know what they're pointing at, even if it is in a clever, punny way, which I think is effective. And ideally, I think it's asking people to do more research and to get involved with that simple messaging saying, I'm more curious, instead of putting it all right out front, like sometimes we tend to, and there's information overload, which gets tricky. So long answer, but yes, I do think that it's effective.
Finally, do you have any comments about the ads? Anything that you think of it,
Yeah, I think going back to what I was mentioning earlier, advertising is really hard. Marketing, getting people to do sustainable behavior change can be really difficult, and capturing people's attention can be really difficult, especially when we live in a world where there is so much visual noise surrounding us all the time. There's billboards everywhere, there's flyers everywhere, there's media on our phone, there's screens everywhere. We're constantly being inundated, and so I appreciate that they have crafted messaging that is stark, that is concise, and that is clear in what they're pointing towards.
It's quite difficult to get an idea on how public campaigns like the Denver Climate Project work. So I talked to the MSU Denver Chair of Political Science, Robert Preuhs, to get his 2 cents on this. Have you heard of the Denver Climate Project before this interview?
I have not heard of it. I've heard about the Climate Fund, all right, but the particular project dealing with public outreach, I have not been aware of. Just to follow up, I don't live in Denver, right? And so I don't see the things on a regular basis. I'm a commuter like a lot of folks, and so I don't see the on the ground, right, kind of application.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. From a political standpoint, how do you feel about shifting the blame of climate change from big polluters like big oil or fracking onto individual consumers?
Yeah, and I don't know if I characterize it as shifting the blame as opposed to, say, raising awareness about what people could do on an individual level in terms of dealing with climate change. And so, from a policy perspective, there's a couple of ways to go about dealing with climate change, actually many. One is certainly regulation and trying to approach the very large polluters and emitters of carbon, and whether that's oil and gas or large industries. But that's often tough for a city to do, right? And so part of what the Climate Fund was intended to do was to provide commercial, residential rebates and incentives to go green, right? To provide a bit more electricity-based reserves and fuel. But also then to provide little smaller bits like rebates for electric bicycles, which in and of itself are really kind of individual choices that you make. So when it comes down to kind of advertising to folks saying, look, you can do something, I think it really depends on your interpretation of that. On one hand, we're neglecting some of those really big polluters and emitters of carbon that we know are ultimately going to be the ones that we need to deal with, right? Those sources. But at the same time, both making folks aware of those individual choices that they can make that can have an impact. And I think more importantly, really raise awareness of the issue itself. So if it's not talking to folks about what you can do, it's reminding folks that there are things to be done, whether it's small policies or really big policies, and keeping it on the front burner of really that discussion. And I think related to that is part of that mission of the Climate Fund is to deal with environmental justice and to reach out to minoritized communities who do, as political scientists know, we do have a lower level of information about climate change and what you can do, not so much necessarily a lower concern, and that's something that's important too. So providing some of those tools. Now, is it a perfect proposal? Nope, by no means. Has it been perfectly implemented? Perhaps not. But it's one way of many that I think that Climate Fund is trying to get people aware of both what's going on, but also some of those individual steps.
So have you seen other effective policies or movements or just anything to do with the environment, like effective action?
Yeah, effective action. It's tough. I mean, on one hand, one of the things that doesn't work, at least in terms of creating more public support for larger government type one of the things that's really effective in terms of public opinion, in terms of creating greater support for kind of bigger government interventions that will have an impact, is really to message, to allow voters and citizens and residents, to know that it's a big issue, but it's not so big that they shut down, decide not to think about it, right? And so that's actually one risk of some of the very harrowing kind of stories of what can happen down the line. Now, we're all aware of what can happen, but we do psychologically as human beings tend to shut down, say there's just too much stuff to deal with and there's nothing we can do, and then the result is we don't do anything. And that's a problem. But actually really what it comes down to for most policies, whether it's at the global level or whether it's at national level or at the local level, is a lot of it really is about kind of choices regarding money, right? And how much money you're willing to spend in order to have and reduce climate change and that emissions of carbon or other factors versus what you can spend right now and not do it. And so at the local level, right, things like rebates for electric bikes seem to work, things like rebates which are going away in a day or so for electric vehicles, right, at the national level, as well as rebates and incentives for corporations. Now, there is a danger, and a lot of times what we see is those early rebates tend to benefit a wealthier class, maybe less so for some of the bike incentives here in Colorado, just because they're rated based on income. But for the most part, that is the concern, right? And certainly one of the cries of folks that don't want to see a continuation of the EV rebate. Part of this because they're not so concerned about it, but also because there does seem to be a disproportionate benefit to those that can afford electric vehicles, which are more costly than their carbon-based counterparts.
I'd like to go.
So yeah, I mean, you do have that risk, right? But at the same time, by putting it in those types of terms, not today, apocalypse, for instance, right? It makes it seem like this is an issue that you individually can deal with. Is it perfect? Nope. Do you have to worry about that? I think you do, actually. And maybe some of the more messaging more along the lines of kind of positive, these are the steps we can take in order to move forward would be more effective.
Good point. Brent, do you have any comments about this ad? Like any thoughts about it?
No, it's, I think like any policy, like any big policy dealing with a big issue, you really do have to have both kind of the implementation side, the rebates, right, the policies themselves, but you also have to manage the public support for it as well. And certainly Denver voters supported creating the climate fund. I think they still probably would going forward. In some ways, some of what we're seeing is very public, right? More e-bikes, right? Some mass transit. Other things aren't so clear. Swapping out for more energy efficient appliances or trying to provide, non-gas or solely electrified buildings. Those things we don't see from the outside. And so really kind of showing that there's some public messaging that things are being done is always important for a policy. Is it perfect? Nope, but no policies are.
The Denver Climate Project is another step in making Denver powered with 100% renewable energy by 2050. And now you know everything about it. This was Abbie Hundley with Met TV. Follow for more.